3 gunmen burst into the restaurant, shouting in Mandarin, guns aimed straight at the Korean Mafia boss. But Ariana wasn't thinking about him. She was thinking about surviving. About staying invisible. About not being found. Yet when those weapons rose, her body moved before her fear could stop it. In 10 seconds, she dropped all 3 attackers with skills she swore she'd never use again. And the moment it was over, she panicked not from the violence, but from the eyes now staring at her. She ripped off her apron and tried to disappear into the night, praying no one had seen her face. But Jang Woojin had. The man she saved watched her like he recognized something broken, something brave, something dangerous. And Ariana knew, with a sinking weight in her chest, that saving his life may have just exposed the one thing she'd been running from for years herself. If Ariana's fear touched you even for a moment, if you felt that breath she held when her past almost caught her, stay with me. Her story only gets heavier and more human from here. Before we go deeper, share something with me. Tell me where you're watching from. It means more than you know to see these stories connect with people across the world. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe and keep your notifications on. I have more stories coming. Stories of people who are fighting invisible battles, choosing courage when no one is looking, and holding on even when life gives them every reason to let go. Now, breathe in, settle your heart, and step with me back into Ariana's world, because what comes next will shake the foundations she's been running on for years. 48 hours later, Ariana was pouring wine at Celestial, a Michelin-starred restaurant in Beverly Hills, pretending her hands weren't still bruised beneath concealer, pretending she didn't flinch every time the sommelier opened champagne. She'd covered the damage with makeup and long sleeves, told the new manager she'd been in a car accident, another lie to add to the collection that was her entire existence. "You seem distracted," Ariana, Monique said, the floor manager who'd hired her 3 weeks ago when she'd needed to disappear from Azure Palace. "Everything okay?" "Perfect." Ariana forced the bland, forgettable smile she'd perfected. Just adjusting to the new schedule. She needed to be invisible. Just another waitress with an unmemorable face and a backstory no one questioned. Normal. Unremarkable. Safe. The hostess appeared in the doorway, and Ariana's instincts screamed danger before her conscious mind registered why. The woman's body language, tense, intimidated, and the way she kept glancing back toward the entrance. "VIP walk-in," Monique whispered. Section 3. "Your station." Ariana turned toward the dining room and her blood turned to ice. Jang Woojin stood at the host stand looking completely different from the man with a gun to his head. Now he was pristine, charcoal Tom Ford suit tailored to perfection, dark hair styled back, moving with the kind of quiet dominance that made the entire staff instinctively defer. But his eyes, those dark, intelligent eyes that missed nothing, were scanning the room with predatory focus. Searching for her. Their gazes locked across the dining room, and Ariana saw the exact moment he confirmed it. Saw the slight curve of his lips, not quite a smile, something more dangerous, the way he declined the host's offer of a table and moved directly toward the bar where she stood frozen. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet were rooted to the polished floor, her training screaming that running would confirm everything. "Whiskey, please," he said in perfect English, settling onto a bar stool directly in front of her station. Up close, she could see the fading bruises on his jaw, the small cut above his eyebrow, evidence of the assassination attempt she'd interrupted. "Macallan 18. Neat." Ariana's hand trembled as she reached for the bottle, but she kept her voice professionally bland. "Coming right up, sir." "You disappeared before I could properly thank you." His voice was low, meant only for her, cutting through the ambient jazz and clinking glasses. "That was discourteous." "I don't know what you're talking about." She set the glass down, amber liquid threatening to slosh. "Will there be anything else?" "Yes." He pulled out his phone with deliberate slowness, and Ariana's stomach dropped as he turned the screen toward her. Security footage, surprisingly high quality despite the chaos, showing her disarming 3 men with brutal precision, techniques no civilian would know. I think we should discuss your remarkable reflexes. Somewhere private. I'm working. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Then I'll wait. He took a deliberate sip of whiskey, settling in like he owned the place. Which, given his resources, he probably could if he wanted. I have nothing but time. Though I imagine your employer might find it curious that a customer is watching you so intently for hours. People talk. Especially in establishments like this. The threat was subtle but clear. He could expose her without saying a word, just his presence, his attention, would make her memorable. Visible. Everything she couldn't afford to be. Ariana wanted to tell him to go to hell, wanted to call security, though that would trigger its own catastrophe. Instead, she heard herself saying, "My break is in 30 minutes. There's a courtyard behind the building." Perfect. His smile was slight but genuine, almost warm. "I'll be waiting." And Ariana, her blood ran cold at her name on his lips. "Thank you for saving my life. Even if you did try to vanish afterward." He knew her name. Of course he knew her name. Men with his resources probably knew everything about her fake identity within hours. The question was, how deep had he dug? How much did he know? Ariana's carefully constructed invisibility was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The courtyard was private, surrounded by high walls draped in jasmine, empty except for the 2 of them beneath string lights that cast everything in amber. Ariana sat on a stone bench, and Jang settled beside her, not too close, maintaining respectful distance, silent for a long moment, just studying her like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. "Former intelligence," he finally said. "Not a question. CIA or DIA based on your technique. The wrist lock you used, that's not military standard. That's agency training." Ariana's jaw tightened. "Does it matter?" "It matters because 3 armed men with professional training couldn't land a single shot on you." He turned to face her fully, and she was struck again by how present he was, like he existed in sharper focus than everyone else. "It matters because you moved like you've killed before. Like you've done things you can't undo." He paused. "It matters because I need to know who saved my life." "Why?" "So you can add me to your criminal empire." She stood, needing distance. "Thanks, but I'm not interested in whatever this is." A slight smile. "You know who I am then. Jang Woojin, heir to the Baekda Syndicate." Ariana had done her research the moment she got home that night, unable to help herself despite knowing it was dangerous. "Your family controls most of LA's Koreatown, legitimate businesses and otherwise. You were targeted by the Jade Serpent Triad. Retaliation for a territory dispute in Long Beach. You're well informed." "I'm careful." "There's a difference." She crossed her arms, defensive. "Look, I helped you because I was there. Wrong place, wrong time. That's all. I don't want money. I don't want a job. I don't want anything from you except to forget we ever met." "What if I said I can't do that?" Jang stood as well, and Ariana was reminded of exactly how tall he was, how much presence he carried. It wasn't just physical, though at 6'2" he towered over her, it was something else. Authority earned through something darker than inheritance. "The men you fought," he continued, voice grave. "They survived. Barely, but they survived. And they know someone interfered. They're looking for Jang's mysterious protector. The Jade Serpent doesn't forgive interference, Miss Cole. And they have considerable resources to find who they're looking for." Fear spiked cold through her chest. "How would they even know what I look like?" "Because Azure Palace has security cameras everywhere." He pulled out his phone again, showing her different angles of the fight, her face partially visible in several frames. "I had this footage scrubbed before the police arrived. But the Jade Serpent has contacts in the department. They'll have seen copies by now. They know they're looking for a black woman, late 20s, athletic build, who fights like a trained operative." The world tilted. "Then I'll disappear. I've done it before." "Have you?" He stepped closer, eyes searching her face with unsettling intensity. Is that why you're waitressing under a name that doesn't match your social security number? Why do you live in a cash-only apartment in Koreatown? Why have you worked at 7 different restaurants in 2 years, never staying long enough to be remembered? Ariana's blood ran cold. You investigated me. I protect what's mine. And whether you accept it or not, you saved my life, which creates an obligation. His voice was firm, brooking no argument. You're already running from something, Miss Cole. Adding the Jade Serpent triad to your list of enemies seems strategically unwise. I'll take my chances. Will you? He pulled out a business card, thick stock, minimalist design. I'm offering you a choice. Work for me. Security consultation. Risk assessment. Whatever capacity best uses your considerable skills. In exchange, I protect you from the Jade Serpent and whoever else you're hiding from. I don't work for criminals. You don't work for anyone. Something sharp flashed in his eyes. You pour wine and pretend you're not wasting a lifetime of training. Pretend you're not dying inside from boredom and fear. He pressed the card into her hand. Think about it. But Miss Cole, Ariana, they're coming. The only question is whether you face them alone or with the most powerful organization in Los Angeles backing you. He left her standing there in the jasmine-scented courtyard, card burning in her palm like a brand. And despite every instinct telling her to run, to disappear into another city with another name, Ariana found herself pocketing the card. Because he was right. They were coming. And for the first time in 2 years, she was tired of running. Ariana was halfway through packing her go bag when someone knocked on her apartment door at 11:47 p.m. 3 precise raps, confident and unhurried, the knock of someone who knew she was home and wasn't leaving until she answered. Her hand moved instinctively to the Glock taped beneath her kitchen table. 2 years of paranoia had taught her that late-night visitors meant one of two things, death or worse. She checked the peephole and her stomach dropped. Jang Woojin stood in the hallway looking like he'd stepped out of a boardroom despite the hour, charcoal Tom Ford suit immaculate, not a hair out of place. 2 bodyguards flanked him, massive men in dark suits with the telltale bulges of shoulder holsters. Professional. Disciplined. Expensive. She considered not answering. Considered climbing out the fire escape she'd kept clear for exactly this scenario. But men like Jang didn't knock when they could break down doors. The courtesy itself was a message. I'm choosing to be civilized. Don't make me choose otherwise. Ariana opened the door 6 inches, chains still engaged. It's almost midnight. Then I'll be brief. His dark eyes flicked past her to the half-packed duffel on her bed, the emptied drawers, the apartment already taking on the hollow quality of abandonment. Running again so soon? You just started at Celestial. How did you find me? You're good at disappearing, Miss Cole. But you're not invisible. He gestured to the chain. May I come in? What I have to say shouldn't be discussed in hallways. Every instinct screamed no. But he already knew where she lived, already knew she was planning to bolt. Refusing now only delayed the inevitable. She closed the door, unlatched the chain, and opened it fully. You have 5 minutes. Jang entered with the calm confidence of a man who'd never been unwelcome anywhere, his bodyguards taking positions outside her door without being asked. He surveyed her studio apartment with the same analytical precision she'd used to assess a safe house, noting the lack of personal effects, the clear sightlines to both door and window, the strategic placement of potential weapons disguised as ordinary objects. Sparse, he observed. Ready to abandon at a moment's notice. Very professional. For minutes. To her surprise, he moved directly to her tiny kitchen, opening cabinets until he found her tea collection, Korean green tea she'd bought from the market in Koreatown because some habits were harder to break than others. He set water to boil like he owned the place. I didn't offer you tea, Ariana said flatly. No, but civility requires ritual. He found 2 cups, movements economical and practiced. And what I'm about to propose requires civility. I'm not interested in proposals from criminals. Then you'll find the next few minutes tedious. The kettle whistled, and he poured with the careful precision of someone who'd been raised with ceremony. He set a cup in front of her, she didn't touch it, and cradled his own. Ariana Cole, 29 years old. At least, that's what your identification claims. But Ariana Cole died in a car accident in Phoenix 4 years ago. You've been wearing her name like borrowed clothes. Her blood turned to ice, but she kept her expression neutral. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? He pulled out a tablet, swiped it open. Security footage appeared, not from Azure Palace, but from a street camera 2 blocks from her apartment. Timestamp: 36 hours ago. The image showed her turning a corner, and in the enhanced zoom, 2 men were visible in the background. Asian. Well-dressed. Following at professional distance. Jade Serpent Scouts. They've been tracking you since the incident. They're very patient, but patience has limits. Ariana's hands tightened around her untouched tea. Why are you here? To make you an offer before you do something stupid like run to Seattle or Houston or whatever city you've already researched. He set the tablet down, and his voice lost its casual edge, becoming something harder. More honest. Work for me. Security consultation. Risk assessment. You redesign my protocols, identify vulnerabilities, train my people. In exchange, I provide protection from the Jade Serpent and resources to maintain whatever anonymity you're clinging to. I don't work for criminals. You keep saying that. A slight smile curved his lips, not mocking, something closer to understanding. As if pouring wine for tech billionaires and hedge fund managers who destroy lives legally is morally superior to what I do. He took a deliberate sip of tea. I'm offering you a choice, Miss Cole. Use your skills for something other than survival. Or keep running until you're too tired to run anymore. And if I refuse? Then you refuse. He stood with fluid grace, adjusting his cuffs. I'll leave you to your packing. But understand this. The Jade Serpent is coming. They don't forgive interference, and they don't stop until debts are paid in blood. You can face them alone, or you can face them with the most powerful Korean organization in Los Angeles standing between you and their retribution. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. You saved my life. I don't forget debts, and I don't abandon assets. Think about it. Then he was gone, his bodyguards falling into step behind him like shadows, and Ariana was alone with cold tea and colder certainty. She stood at her window, watching Jang's black Mercedes pull away from the curb, disappearing into LA's midnight traffic. On her counter, he'd left another business card, thick stock, minimalist design, a phone number printed in subtle gray. Ariana looked at her half-packed go bag. At the apartment she'd paid 3 months cash for, another temporary shelter in an endless series of hiding places. At the fake IDs stacked in her drawer, each one a different life she could slip into and discard when danger got too close. She'd been running for 2 years. New city, new name, new face in the crowd. Always looking over her shoulder. Always alone. The card sat on her counter like a grenade with a pin pulled. He's a criminal, she thought. Asterisk a gangster. Everything you escaped the CIA to avoid becoming. Asterisk. But he was also right. The Jade Serpent was coming, and she was tired. So desperately tired of running. Ariana picked up her phone, Jang's card in her other hand, and stared at the number for a long time. Outside, the city hummed with ambient noise, sirens, traffic, the endless pulse of Los Angeles at night. Inside, the silence felt like a held breath. She dialed. He answered on the first ring. I was hoping you'd call tonight. I have conditions, Ariana said, hating how steady her voice sounded. How final. I expected nothing less. She could hear the smile in his voice. My office. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. We'll negotiate terms like civilized people. I'm not civilized. Neither am I, Miss Cole. That's why this will work. The line went dead, and Ariana stood in her apartment that was no longer temporary, staring at the go bag she wouldn't need. She'd just made a deal with the devil. The only question was which one of them would get burned. Ariana didn't make it to the 2 p.m. meeting. At 10:47 a.m., during the breakfast service at Celestial, two men in expensive suits sat in her section and ordered coffee they didn't drink. They watched her with the flat, patient stare of predators waiting for the herd to thin. When she retreated to the kitchen to place an order, they followed. She saw them coming in the reflection of the stainless steel prep counter. Saw the subtle shift in posture that preceded violence. Her body moved before conscious thought, grabbing a sauté pan, spinning, connecting with the first man's temple with enough force to drop him. The second lunged, knife appearing from nowhere, and she barely twisted away, the blade slicing through her uniform sleeve and kissing skin. "Jade Serpent sends regards," he hissed in Mandarin. Ariana drove her knee into his solar plexus, followed with an elbow strike that shattered his nose. He went down gurgling. The entire kitchen had frozen line cooks, dishwashers, the sous chef with a cleaver raised defensively. "I quit," Ariana said to no one in particular and walked out the back exit before police could arrive. She was bleeding, exhausted, and out of options. She went to Century City. Jang's building was everything she expected, glass and steel luxury rising 43 stories, the kind of place where doormen wore better suits than most executives. The lobby was marble and minimalist art, money whispered in every detail. "Ariana Cole for Mr. Jang," she told the receptionist, acutely aware of the blood seeping through her sleeve, the disheveled state of her stolen waitress uniform. The woman didn't blink. 42nd floor. "He's expecting you." Of course he is, Ariana thought. Men like Jang always knew when pieces moved on their chessboard. The elevator was mirrored, and she avoided her reflection, the haunted eyes, the tension carved into every line of her face. When the doors opened, she stepped into a penthouse office that redefined her understanding of wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Los Angeles, the city sprawling beneath them like a kingdom waiting to be claimed. The space was ruthlessly minimalist, white walls, dark hardwood, furniture that cost more than most cars. But nothing cliché. No dragon sculptures or calligraphy scrolls, none of the stereotypical crime boss aesthetics. This was the office of a CEO, a venture capitalist, someone who built empires in boardrooms rather than back alleys. Jang stood at the windows, hands clasped behind his back, perfectly tailored in navy brioni. He turned as she entered, and his eyes went immediately to her bleeding arm. "They found you faster than I anticipated," he said quietly. "Are you hurt badly?" "I've had worse." She stayed near the door, defensive. "I'm here. Let's negotiate." He gestured to a seating area, low sofa, 2 chairs, a glass coffee table that probably cost what she used to make in 6 months. A first aid kit sat waiting, because of course he'd anticipated this too. "Sit. Let me see the arm." "I'm fine." "Sit, Miss Cole, or I'll have my doctor come up here." His voice held quiet authority that expected obedience. "We can negotiate while I clean the wound." Multitasking. Ariana sat, hating how her exhaustion made the decision easier. Jang knelt beside her with the first aid kit, rolled up her sleeve with clinical efficiency. The knife had opened a 4-inch gash, not deep, but bloody. "You were lucky," he murmured, cleaning it with antiseptic that burned. Jade Serpent prefers to send messages, not warnings. "I got the message." She watched his hands, steady, practiced, oddly gentle. "Here are my terms. I work as an independent contractor, not an employee. No ownership, no obligations beyond the scope of each specific job. I don't kill for you. I don't participate in anything that targets civilians. And I keep my secrets. You don't ask about my past, I don't volunteer information." Agreed. He didn't hesitate, applying butterfly bandages with surprising care. "Just like that. Just like that." Jang met her eyes, and something in his gaze made her breath catch. "Your former intelligence. CIA, specifically. Your technique is textbook Langley combatives, the disarm you used at Azure Palace, the defensive posture, Even the way you assess rooms for exits and weapons. You were trained by the best, then something went catastrophically wrong, and you've been running ever since. Ariana's blood turned to ice. You. I don't care. He finished bandaging her arm, sat back on his heels. Whatever you did, whoever's hunting you, it's irrelevant to me. I care about your skills, your strategic mind, your ability to see threats I miss. The rest is your business. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Why offer this to someone you don't know? Someone who could be a liability. Jang stood, moved to the windows, silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight she recognized, the burden of things left unsaid. Because we all have things we're running from, Miss Cole. Pasts that hunt us. Choices we can't unmake. He turned, and something raw flickered across his face before the mask returned. You saved my life when you could have walked away. That suggests character. Everything else is just details. Ariana studied him, this contradiction of a man in his expensive suit, ruling a criminal empire he clearly wore like ill-fitting clothes. She recognized the look in his eyes because she saw it in her mirror every morning. Trapped. Surviving. Pretending. What are you running from? She asked quietly. A slight smile. That's my secret, Miss Cole. You keep yours, I'll keep mine. Fair enough. 6-month trial period, she said. After that, we reassess. Payment in cash, no paper trail. And the first time you ask me to do something that crosses my lines, I walk. No questions, no consequences. Done. He extended his hand. Welcome to Baekdu, Miss Cole. She stared at his hand for a long moment, this point of no return, this choice that would change everything. Then she gripped it, his palm warm and solid against hers. Call me Ariana, she said. If we're doing this, we're doing it honestly. Ariana. Her name on his lips felt dangerous. Intimate. Then call me Woojin. Partners should be on first-name basis. Partners. The words settled over her like a coat she'd forgotten how to wear. As his hand released hers, Ariana wondered which one of them had just made the bigger mistake, and why it felt less like a mistake and more like the first honest choice she'd made in 2 years. Outside the windows, Los Angeles sprawled beneath them, a city of second chances and beautiful lies. She'd just bet her life on both. 1 week into her contract, Ariana had cataloged 43 critical security vulnerabilities in Jang's operation, and it was making her physically ill. Your perimeter guards check their phones every 12 minutes, she said, pacing his penthouse office like a caged animal. Your convoy routes are predictable, same 3 variations, rotating weekly. Your safe houses aren't safe. Half of them are registered to shell companies with public records. And your communications? You're using encrypted apps that the NSA cracked 2 years ago. Jang watched her from behind his desk, expression unreadable. Noted. Noted? She spun to face him. You're running a multi-million-dollar operation with security that wouldn't protect a corner store. It's a miracle you're still alive. Yet here I am. A slight smile. Perhaps I've been waiting for the right consultant. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something shifted in his expression, the CEO mask falling away, replaced by something colder. The Jade Serpent is moving stolen military hardware through the port of LA tonight, he said. Rifles, body armor, possibly explosives. We're going to intercept it. Ariana's stomach dropped. That's a terrible idea. It's a necessary idea. He stood, already moving toward the door. They've been pushing into our territory for months. If we don't show strength, we show weakness. Woojin, she caught his arm, surprised by her own familiarity. This is exactly the kind of operation that gets people killed. You don't have the intelligence, you don't have the tactical advantage, and you're walking into their territory on their timeline. He met her eyes, and she saw the weight there, the burden of leadership, of expectations, of a role he never wanted but couldn't escape. I'm not asking your permission, Ariana. I'm informing you of the plan. Then I'm coming with you. She released his arm. Someone needs to minimize the body count. The port of LA at 2 a.m. was a maze of shipping containers and shadows, floodlights creating pools of harsh illumination separated by absolute darkness. Jang had brought 8 men, professionals in tactical gear, moving with disciplined silence. Ariana crouched beside him behind a container, studying the warehouse where Jade Serpent was supposedly loading their shipment. Everything looked wrong. Too quiet. Too perfect. "It's a trap," she whispered. "You've said that 3 times. Because it's still true." She pulled out the tablet she'd requisitioned, pulling up satellite imaging she'd accessed through methods she wasn't going to explain. "Look, the container configuration. They've created a kill box. The moment your team enters that warehouse, they'll be surrounded." Jang studied the screen, and she watched his tactical mind engage, seeing what she saw. Recommendation: we don't engage. We call it regroup, gather better intel. Not an option. His voice was firm. Retreat now, and we lose credibility we can't afford to lose. Then we flip the trap. Ariana's mind raced, muscle memory from a dozen operations clicking into place. Split your team. Send 4 through the front as bait, loud, obvious. The rest of us circle behind, hit them from their own ambush position. Jang studied her for a long moment. Then, do it. The plan worked right until it didn't. Ariana led the flanking team through the container maze, moving with the silent efficiency of her CIA years. They caught the Jade Serpent ambush team from behind, and for 30 seconds, they had complete advantage. Then the second ambush team emerged, an ambush within the ambush, and everything went to hell. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes strobing in the darkness. Ariana's body moved before thought, muscle memory taking over completely. She wasn't in LA anymore. She was in Syria, extracting an asset while hostile forces closed in. She was in Somalia, defending an embassy against militia assault. She was in Prague, everything going wrong, Sean's voice in her ear feeding her lies. Her hands found a weapon, disarmed from an enemy she barely registered. 3 rounds, center mass, non-lethal placement she'd perfected. The man went down. Another rushed her. She used his momentum against him, judo throw that sent him crashing into a container. A third raised his weapon. She put 2 rounds in his shoulder before he could fire. The tactical part of her brain registered Jang's team securing the shipment, registered enemies retreating, registered mission success. But the rest of her was drowning. Ariana found herself behind a container, back pressed against cold steel, lungs struggling to pull oxygen. Her hands were shaking, no, her whole body was shaking. The gun had fallen from her grip. She couldn't remember dropping it. Prague. The safe house. Sean saying, "Trust me," right before everything exploded. Blood on her hands. So much blood. Ariana. Jang's voice, somewhere far away. "Ariana, look at me." She couldn't. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't. Warm hands on her shoulders, grounding. Not restraining, just present. "You're in Los Angeles," Jang's voice, quiet and steady. "The port of LA. The mission is over. You're safe." "I'm not," she gasped. "I can't." "Breathe with me." He settled beside her against the container, shoulder to shoulder. "In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. He breathed, exaggerated and slow, and some distant part of her training recognized the technique. Combat breathing. Grounding exercise. She tried to match him, failed, tried again. "That's it," he murmured. Again. They sat there, she didn't know how long. Minutes, maybe. He didn't ask questions. Didn't demand explanations. Just breathed beside her in the darkness, while her nervous system slowly remembered how to function. "I'm sorry," she finally whispered. "For what?" "Saving my entire team from walking into a kill box." His voice held no judgment, only quiet certainty. "You were right about everything, Ariana. The trap, the tactical approach, all of it. Without you, we'd have lost people tonight." I froze. "You completed the mission first. Then you processed the trauma." He turned to look at her, and in the dim light, his eyes held an understanding that felt impossible. That's not weakness. That's survival. She met his gaze, saw something there that mirrored her own damage. Whatever he was running from, whatever secrets he kept, they'd left scars too. We should go, she said quietly. Before the police arrive. Yes. But he didn't move immediately. Ariana? Thank you. For coming tonight. For keeping my people alive. She nodded, not trusting her voice. As they stood, his hand briefly squeezed her shoulder. Solidarity, not pity, and something shifted between them. Some recognition that they were both haunted by different ghosts, both pretending to be whole. In the distance, sirens wailed. They disappeared into the container maze like shadows, and Ariana wondered if she'd just found the first person in 2 years who understood that survival and living weren't the same thing. You're coming home with me. Ariana looked up from the passenger seat of Jang's Mercedes, still trembling despite the heated leather, despite the 40 minutes that had passed since the port. I have an apartment. You have a studio with thin walls where you'll spend the next 6 hours reliving tonight instead of sleeping. His voice was gentle but immovable. You're in no condition to be alone, Ariana. Don't argue. She wanted to insist on her independence, her carefully maintained distance. But exhaustion had stripped away her defenses, and the thought of being alone in the dark with her memories made something in her chest constrict painfully. Just tonight, she whispered. Just tonight, he agreed, though something in his tone suggested he knew it was a lie. Jang's penthouse was different at night. The floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Los Angeles as a sprawl of lights, the city humming with insomnia and secrets. He'd shed his tactical gear for simple black loungewear, somehow looking more dangerous in casual clothes than in Armani. Sit, he said, gesturing to the sofa. I'll make tea. Ariana watched, surprised, as he moved through his kitchen with practiced ease. Not coffee, not whiskey, traditional Korean tea service. He heated water in a ceramic kettle, measured green tea leaves with careful precision, arranged cups on a wooden tray with the attention of someone performing ritual rather than task. My grandmother taught me, he said without looking up, as if sensing her question. She said tea cleanses more than the body. It creates space for truth. He brought the tray to the low table, settled across from her, and poured with movements that were almost meditative. Steam rose between them, carrying the delicate scent of green tea and something deeper, ceremony, tradition, the weight of inheritance. Ariana accepted the cup, wrapping both hands around the warmth. This is very domestic for a crime boss. Is that what you think I am? A slight smile touched his lips. A crime boss. Isn't that what you are? It's what I do. He sipped his tea, gaze distant. Not what I am. There's a difference. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, contemplative. Ariana found herself asking the question that had haunted her since she'd accepted his offer. Why do you do this? She gestured vaguely, encompassing the penthouse, the organization, the violence. You're educated, intelligent, wealthy. You could be anything. Why choose this? Jang was quiet for a long moment, staring into his tea like it held answers. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old grief. I didn't choose it. He set down his cup with careful precision. My older brother Min-sik was the heir, groomed for it since birth. I was the spare, the one allowed to have a different life. I was getting my PhD in international law at Columbia. 22 years old, writing my dissertation on transnational organized crime, ironically enough. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then Min-sik was assassinated. Rival family, power play. 3 bullets in a restaurant not unlike Azure Palace. His jaw tightened. My father had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Months to live, maybe weeks. Someone had to take over immediately, or the entire organization would collapse. Our people, the legitimate businesses, the families who depend on us, they'd all be vulnerable. So you came back, Ariana said quietly. I was 19 when my father died. 20 when I fully assumed control. He met her eyes, and she saw the boy he'd been, drowning in responsibility he never wanted. I didn't finish my degree. I didn't get to choose my life. I became what circumstances demanded. But you stayed, she pressed. You could have walked away, sold everything, disappeared, and abandoned everyone who depends on me? The workers in our businesses, the families we protect, the community that's been tied to Baekdu for 3 generations. He shook his head. That's not honor, Ariana. That's cowardice dressed as freedom. Something in Ariana's chest cracked open, the understanding of someone else trapped by circumstances, by duty, by the weight of choices that weren't really choices at all. So you do it with honor instead, she said softly. You can't escape the role, so you perform it as ethically as possible. I transition what I can toward legitimacy. I protect where protection is needed. I minimize violence, avoid civilian casualties, treat this empire like the business it is rather than the barbarism it could be. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. I didn't choose this life, Ariana. But I can choose how I live it. There's power in that distinction. She understood completely. Understood the prison of circumstances beyond your control. Understood becoming someone you never intended to be. Understood the desperate attempt to find honor in dishonorable situations. You see it, Jang said quietly, studying her face. You understand. Ariana looked away, unable to hold his gaze. I understand being trapped by choices that weren't really choices. What trapped you? The question hung between them, gentle but piercing. She could deflect, could hide behind their agreement not to share pasts. But something about the vulnerability he'd just offered demanded reciprocation. Betrayal, she whispered. I was betrayed by someone I trusted, and it destroyed the life I'd built. Everything I thought I was, everything I'd worked for gone. And the person I became after. She met his eyes. I don't recognize her sometimes. This ghost pretending to be alive. Jang didn't press for details. Didn't ask who betrayed her, or how, or why. He simply nodded, understanding in his dark eyes. We're both ghosts then, he said quietly. Haunting lives we never wanted. Is that what this is? She gestured between them. 2 ghosts recognizing each other? Maybe. He poured more tea, the ritual grounding them both. Or maybe it's 2 people tired of being haunted. Trying to figure out if there's something beyond survival. Ariana sipped her tea, warmth spreading through her chest, not from the temperature, but from something more dangerous. Connection. Understanding. The terrifying possibility that she wasn't alone in her particular flavor of damage. Thank you, she said finally. For the tea. For telling me about Minseek. For not letting me be alone tonight. Thank you for trusting me with your ghosts. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Even the parts you didn't say out loud. Outside the windows, Los Angeles was beginning to lighten false dawn, painting the sky in shades of gray. They'd talked through the night without realizing it, 2 damaged people finding unexpected sanctuary in shared understanding. Ariana knew she should leave. Should maintain professional distance. Should remember that getting close to people only gave them power to hurt you. But when Jang offered to make breakfast, she found herself saying yes. Just this once, she told herself. Just today. The lie tasted sweeter than the tea. You're coming home with me. Ariana looked up from the passenger seat of Jang's Mercedes, still trembling despite the heated leather, despite the 40 minutes that had passed since the port. I have an apartment. You have a studio with thin walls where you'll spend the next 6 hours reliving tonight instead of sleeping. His voice was gentle but immovable. You're in no condition to be alone, Ariana. Don't argue. She wanted to insist on her independence, her carefully maintained distance. But exhaustion had stripped away her defenses, and the thought of being alone in the dark with her memories made something in her chest constrict painfully. Just tonight, she whispered. Just tonight, he agreed, though something in his tone suggested he knew it was a lie. Jang's penthouse was different at night. The floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Los Angeles as a sprawl of lights, the city humming with insomnia and secrets. He'd shed his tactical gear for simple black loungewear, somehow looking more dangerous in casual clothes than in Armani. Sit, he said, gesturing to the sofa. I'll make tea. Ariana watched, surprised, as he moved through his kitchen with practiced ease. Not coffee, not whiskey, traditional Korean tea service. He heated water in a ceramic kettle, measured green tea leaves with careful precision, arranged cups on a wooden tray with the attention of someone performing ritual rather than task. My grandmother taught me, he said without looking up, as if sensing her question. She said tea cleanses more than the body. It creates space for truth. He brought the tray to the low table, settled across from her, and poured with movements that were almost meditative. Steam rose between them, carrying the delicate scent of green tea and something deeper, ceremony, tradition, the weight of inheritance. Ariana accepted the cup, wrapping both hands around the warmth. This is very domestic for a crime boss. Is that what you think I am? A slight smile touched his lips. A crime boss. Isn't that what you are? It's what I do. He sipped his tea, gaze distant. Not what I am. There's a difference. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, contemplative. Ariana found herself asking the question that had haunted her since she'd accepted his offer. Why do you do this? She gestured vaguely, encompassing the penthouse, the organization, the violence. You're educated, intelligent, wealthy. You could be anything. Why choose this? Jang was quiet for a long moment, staring into his tea like it held answers. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old grief. I didn't choose it. He set down his cup with careful precision. My older brother Min-sik was the heir, groomed for it since birth. I was the spare, the one allowed to have a different life. I was getting my PhD in international law at Columbia. 22 years old, writing my dissertation on transnational organized crime, ironically enough. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then Min-sik was assassinated. Rival family, power play. 3 bullets in a restaurant not unlike Azure Palace. His jaw tightened. My father had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Months to live, maybe weeks. Someone had to take over immediately, or the entire organization would collapse. Our people, the legitimate businesses, the families who depend on us, they'd all be vulnerable. So you came back, Ariana said quietly. I was 19 when my father died. 20 when I fully assumed control. He met her eyes, and she saw the boy he'd been, drowning in responsibility he never wanted. I didn't finish my degree. I didn't get to choose my life. I became what circumstances demanded. But you stayed, she pressed. You could have walked away. Sold everything, disappeared. And abandoned everyone who depends on me? The workers in our businesses, the families we protect, the community that's been tied to Baekdu for 3 generations. He shook his head. That's not honor, Ariana. That's cowardice dressed as freedom. Something in Ariana's chest cracked open, the understanding of someone else trapped by circumstances, by duty, by the weight of choices that weren't really choices at all. So you do it with honor instead, she said softly. You can't escape the role, so you perform it as ethically as possible. I transition what I can toward legitimacy. I protect where protection is needed. I minimize violence, avoid civilian casualties, treat this empire like the business it is rather than the barbarism it could be. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. I didn't choose this life, Ariana. But I can choose how I live it. There's power in that distinction. She understood completely. Understood the prison of circumstances beyond your control. Understood becoming someone you never intended to be. Understood the desperate attempt to find honor in dishonorable situations. You see it, Jang said quietly, studying her face. You understand. Ariana looked away, unable to hold his gaze. I understand being trapped by choices that weren't really choices. What trapped you? The question hung between them, gentle but piercing. She could deflect, could hide behind their agreement not to share pasts. But something about the vulnerability he'd just offered demanded reciprocation. Betrayal, she whispered. I was betrayed by someone I trusted, and it destroyed the life I'd built. Everything I thought I was, everything I'd worked for gone. And the person I became after. She met his eyes. I don't recognize her sometimes. This ghost pretending to be alive. Jang didn't press for details. Didn't ask who betrayed her or how or why. He simply nodded, understanding in his dark eyes. We're both ghosts then, he said quietly. Haunting lives we never wanted. Is that what this is? She gestured between them. Two ghosts recognizing each other? Maybe. He poured more tea, the ritual grounding them both. Or maybe it's two people tired of being haunted, trying to figure out if there's something beyond survival. Ariana sipped her tea, warmth spreading through her chest, not from the temperature, but from something more dangerous. Connection. Understanding. The terrifying possibility that she wasn't alone in her particular flavor of damage. Thank you, she said finally. For the tea. For telling me about Minseek. For not letting me be alone tonight. Thank you for trusting me with your ghosts. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Even the parts you didn't say out loud. Outside the windows, Los Angeles was beginning to lighten false dawn, painting the sky in shades of gray. They'd talked through the night without realizing it, two damaged people finding unexpected sanctuary in shared understanding. Ariana knew she should leave. Should maintain professional distance. Should remember that getting close to people only gave them power to hurt you. But when Jang offered to make breakfast, she found herself saying yes. Just this once, she told herself. Just today. The lie tasted sweeter than the tea. 8 weeks transformed Ariana from consultant to essential. She redesigned Jang's security protocols with ruthless efficiency, rotating convoy routes daily, implementing military-grade communications encryption, vetting every guard through background checks that would make the Secret Service jealous. His team resented her at first, this outsider, this woman, this Black American telling Korean men twice her size how to do their jobs. Then she put the biggest skeptic on his ass in 15 seconds during a training demonstration, and respect came quickly after that. Again, she told Minjun, Jang's head of security, extending a hand to help him up. You're telegraphing the punch. Shoulder drops before you move. He took her hand, something like admiration replacing his earlier hostility. You were military? Something like that. Jang watched from the penthouse gym's doorway, arms crossed, the slight curve of his lips suggesting amusement and something warmer. She felt his gaze like a physical touch, and it took conscious effort not to look back. Late nights reviewing intelligence became dinner at his dining table, takeout from Koreatown spread between security reports, discussing threat assessments over kimchi and short rib. The Jade Serpent is quiet, Ariana said, analyzing surveillance photos. Too quiet. They're planning something. Agreed. Jang refilled her wine. He learned she preferred red, full-bodied, nothing sweet. I've reached out to allied families. No one's heard movement. Which means it's big enough they're keeping it internal. She circled a face in the photos. This man. He's appeared in 3 different locations this week. That's not coincidence. You have excellent instincts. His voice held genuine admiration. Where did you learn to read patterns like this? A careful answer, revealing truth without exposing wounds. I had good teachers. And bad experiences that taught me to trust my gut. He didn't press, just nodded. They developed this rhythm, sharing pieces, never the whole picture. Enough honesty to build trust, enough withholding to maintain safety. She learned he loved jazz, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, pieces that were mathematical in their complexity. He played piano, though he claimed to be terrible. His penthouse held a Steinway he touched like a lover, late nights when he thought no one was watching. He spoke 4 languages fluently: Korean, English, Mandarin, Japanese, and was learning Spanish to better communicate with allied families in East LA. You're a polyglot, she said one night, startled by his flawless Mandarin during a phone negotiation. Necessity. Can't build alliances if you can't communicate respect in someone's native language. He switched back to English seamlessly. You speak what, 3? 4. 5. She ticked them off. English, Korean, Arabic, Russian, Farsi. His eyebrows rose. That's not waitress training. No, she admitted. That's survival in places where English gets you killed. He wanted to ask. She saw the curiosity, but respected her boundaries. Instead, say something in Farsi. She considered, then spoke softly. Man az gozashtam farer mikanam. Asterisk. Translation. I'm running from my past. She met his eyes. Seemed appropriate. Something shifted in his expression, recognition, empathy, the mirror of his own truth. We both are. She discovered his secret by accident. A file left open on his laptop. Scholarship fund applications from Korean American students. Hundreds of them. Full rides to university, no strings attached. You're funding education programs, she said, surprised. He looked up from his desk, almost embarrassed. My father believed in giving back to the community. I'm continuing his work. How many students? 43 this year. More if the fund allows. He closed the laptop. I never got to finish my degree. Seemed wrong not to help others finish theirs. Ariana felt something crack in her chest. This man, this complicated contradiction who ruled a criminal empire while funding futures he'd never have. That's beautiful, she said quietly. It's practical. Educated community is stronger community. But his ears reddened slightly, and she realized he was genuinely uncomfortable with praise. He learned her truth in fragments, over weeks of late-night conversations. That she'd grown up in foster care, 7 different homes before aging out at 18. I joined the military for belonging, she admitted one night. Wanted a family. A place to matter. That she'd been recruited by CIA at 23. I had a gift for languages, strategic thinking. They said I could serve my country, make a difference. Bitterness crept into her voice. Turns out, making a difference means a lot of things, not all of them honorable. That something had gone catastrophically wrong. She didn't say what couldn't yet, but he saw the shadows cross her face, the way her hands tightened around her wine glass. They betray you, he asked gently. Yes. One word, carrying years of damage. Then they were fools. His voice was fierce, protective. You're extraordinary, Ariana. Whatever they did to you, whatever they made you believe about yourself, they were wrong. She looked away, throat tight. You don't know what I've done. I know who you are now. That's enough. It happened during a late-night security review, both of them exhausted, leaning over his desk studying surveillance footage. Their hands reached for the keyboard simultaneously, fingers brushing. The contact was electric, innocent touch that felt anything but. Ariana froze, hyper-aware of his proximity, the scent of his cologne, the warmth radiating from his body inches from hers. Jang's breath caught, barely audible. Neither pulled away. This is inappropriate, he said finally, voice rough. You work for me. There's a power dynamic. I can't. Yes. Ariana's heart pounded so hard she was certain he could hear it. You're right. We shouldn't. But she didn't move. Neither did he. The moment stretched, taut as a wire, everything they weren't saying hanging in the minimal space between them. His eyes dropped to her mouth, and she watched his throat work as he swallowed. Ariana, he whispered, and her name on his lips felt like a confession. She should step back. Should remember every reason this was dangerous, professional boundaries, her need to stay hidden, the impossibility of trusting someone with her heart when trust had already destroyed her once. Instead, she turned her hand, palm up, letting their fingers intertwine. We're both adults, she said quietly. We both know the risks. We both know this is a terrible idea. Catastrophic, he agreed, but his thumb traced circles on her palm, sending electricity up her arm. So we don't, she said, even as she leaned fractionally closer. We maintain professional boundaries. We keep this strictly business. Strictly business, he echoed, his free hand rising to cup her face with devastating gentleness. They stayed like that, frozen in the moment before the fall, both knowing they were lying, both unable to stop. Finally, Jang stepped back, breaking contact like breaking a spell. His breathing was unsteady, jaw tight with restraint. "It's late," he said. "You should go home. Get some sleep." "Yes." Ariana gathered her things with shaking hands. "That's smart. Professional distance." At the door, she paused, looked back. He stood at the windows, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the city lights. Beautiful and lonely and wanting. "Wu Jin." He turned. "This not happening between us?" She smiled despite everything. "It's getting very loud." A surprised laugh escaped him, genuine and warm. "Deafening." She left before she could do something irreversible, but in the elevator, alone, she touched her palm where his fingers had been and knew they'd already crossed a line they couldn't uncross. The only question was how long they could pretend they hadn't. She knew better. After what Sean did to her, after 2 years of survival, Ariana knew better than to trust anyone. Especially a man like Jang Woo-jin. But loneliness is its own kind of death, isn't it? And the moment she chose connection over safety, her worst nightmare became real. If you're feeling this story, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about broken people finding their way back to whole. Because if you've ever let your guard down and regretted it, this next part will hit different. What's coming doesn't just threaten her life, it threatens the first real thing she's felt in years. Stay with me. Wero was Jang's restaurant, upscale Korean barbecue in Koreatown, the kind of place where politicians and CEOs pretended not to see each other while making deals over galbi and soju. He'd invited Ariana for a security assessment, which they both knew was a flimsy excuse to have dinner together. "The sight lines are terrible," she said, cutting her short rib with more precision than necessary. "Too many blind spots from the kitchen. And the private rooms are a nightmare, no secondary exits." "Noted." Jang's eyes held amusement. "Though the food is excellent. You should try the banchan." "I'm working." "You're always working." He refilled her wine. "Sometimes it's acceptable to enjoy the moment, Ariana." She met his gaze across the table, candlelight catching the sharp lines of his face, and felt the now familiar pull low in her stomach. 3 weeks since the night they'd almost kissed. 3 weeks of excruciating professional distance, punctuated by moments where their carefully maintained boundaries felt paper-thin. "Enjoying moments is dangerous," she said quietly. "So is denial." His foot brushed hers under the table, accident or intention, she couldn't tell. "We're both quite skilled at it." Before she could respond, the front windows exploded inward. Glass shattered across marble floors. 4 men in black tactical gear burst through the entrance, automatic weapons raised. Diners screamed. Ariana's body moved before conscious thought, grabbing Jang's collar, yanking him down as bullets stitched across their table. "Jade Serpent," someone shouted in Mandarin. "Nobody moves." But Ariana was already moving. She vaulted over the destroyed table, using the chaos as cover. The first gunman never saw her coming. She disarmed him with a wrist lock that shattered bone, his weapon clattering away. The second spun toward her. She put her knee in his solar plexus, followed with an elbow that dropped him cold. This time there was no hesitation, no PTSD freeze. Just muscle memory and cold efficiency. The third gunman got his weapon up. Jang appeared from nowhere with a chair, connecting with the man's temple. They moved in perfect synchronization, her low, him high, dropping the fourth man together. Silence fell, broken only by sobbing and the wail of approaching sirens. Ariana stood among the wreckage, breathing hard, and met Jang's eyes across the destroyed restaurant. His suit was torn, face cut from flying glass, but he was alive. "Whole. Back exit," he said. "Now." They ran. Jang's driver was waiting in the alley, professional, unsurprised by the violence. They threw themselves into the back seat as police flooded the street, and the Mercedes pulled away with perfect calm. For 30 seconds, silence. Then Ariana started laughing. Not humor, hysterical relief, adrenaline crash, the absurd reality that they'd just survived another assassination attempt over Korean barbecue. She pressed her hands to her face, laughter turning breathless. "We almost died," she gasped. "We almost died over short rib and soju." Jang stared at her for a moment, then he was laughing too, deep, genuine, the sound of someone who'd been holding back too long. Their eyes met, laughter fading into something more dangerous. "Ariana," he started. She kissed him. Desperate, hungry. 2 years of denial shattering in one moment. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and she tasted wine and violence and something sweeter. The kiss was not gentle, it was survival transformed into need, death denied becoming affirmation of being alive. "Penthouse," Jang rasped against her mouth. "Now." The driver didn't react, just adjusted course. Ariana should pull away, should remember every reason this was dangerous. Instead, she kissed him again, harder, claiming and being claimed. They barely made it through his front door. Clothes hit the floor, expensive fabric treated carelessly, buttons scattering. Jang's hands were gentle despite the urgency, asking permission with every touch. Ariana answered by pulling him closer, nails dragging down his back. They made love with the intensity of people who'd been pretending too long, urgent and raw and honest in a way words had never achieved. When Jang's control finally shattered, her name on his lips sounded like prayer and confession both. Afterward, they lay tangled in silk sheets, breathing hard, the city lights painting patterns across their skin. Ariana traced the scar on his shoulder, puckered tissue, long healed, but still visible. "Where?" "Knife fight." His voice was quiet, intimate. "Initiation when I took over. Rival family wanted to test if the new heir would bleed like everyone else." "Did you?" "Obviously." A slight smile. "But I bled less than he did." She kissed the scar, then guided his hand to her ribs, similar mark, bullet graze. "Mogadishu. Extraction gone wrong." He traced it reverently, then found another on her shoulder. "And this?" "Prague." Her throat tightened. The night everything fell apart. He didn't ask for details, just pressed his lips to the scar with devastating tenderness. They mapped each other's damage in silence, physical honesty first, emotional truth still carefully guarded. "This is a terrible idea," Ariana finally whispered. "Catastrophic," Jang agreed, pulling her closer. "You work for me. There's a power imbalance. We're both damaged. We're both running from things we can't outrun. We should stop." "We should." His thumb traced her jawline. "But I don't want to. And I think you don't either." She didn't. God help her, she didn't. For 2 years, she'd been half alive, ghost haunting her own existence. In his arms, she felt real. Whole. Dangerously, impossibly seen. Again, she asked, voice barely audible. "Yes." He kissed her, slower this time, savoring. And again. And again. Until we run out of terrible ideas or come to our senses. "We're not good at coming to our senses." "No," he agreed against her mouth. "We're really not." They made love again, slower, deeper, learning each other with hands and breath and whispered confessions that didn't require words. And when they finally slept, tangled together as dawn painted the sky, Ariana realized she'd crossed the final line she'd sworn never to cross. She'd stopped running. She'd started falling. And for the first time in 2 years, the terror felt like freedom. For 3 weeks, Ariana allowed herself to believe in normal. She kept her apartment for appearances, but most nights ended tangled in Jang's sheets, learning the geography of his body, the sound of his laugh in darkness. They worked during the day, professional, efficient, and burned for each other at night. "You're smiling," Jang observed one morning, watching her dress for a security briefing. "It's unsettling." "Unsettling." "Beautiful." "Terrifying." He pulled her back to bed. "I keep waiting for you to remember why this is a bad idea and disappear." "I remember every reason." She kissed him, soft and lingering. "I'm choosing this anyway." She should have known happiness was borrowed time. Jang's phone rang at 2:17 a.m., the hour when calls only bring disaster. Ariana woke to him speaking rapid Korean, voice tight with tension. When he hung up, his face was carved from stone. Body in the LA River. Burned beyond recognition, but they found identification. Russian national named Alexei Petrov. The name hit her like a bullet. Ariana was out of bed, pulling on clothes with shaking hands. Where exactly? Ariana. Where? He gave her the location. She was dressed and moving before he could stop her, but Jang was faster, catching her wrist. Talk to me. Who is Alexei Petrov? Someone from my past. Her voice was hollow. Someone who helped me when I needed it. And now he's dead because of me. How do you know? Because Viktor Volkov doesn't leave bodies unless he wants them found. She pulled free, heading for the door. I need to see it. Now. The Riverside crime scene was cordoned off, police and forensics working in harsh floodlights. Jang made a call because men like him always had connections, and suddenly they had access. The body was barely recognizable as human. Burned, tortured, discarded like trash. But Ariana's trained eye caught what local police wouldn't notice, the precise pattern of injuries, the professional methodology. And carved into the charred chest in Cyrillic. I found you. Ariana's knees went weak. Jang caught her, steadying her against him. What does it say? I found you. She couldn't look away from Alexei's ruined body. It's Viktor's signature. He's telling me he knows where I am. And that everyone connected to me dies. Who is Viktor Volkov? My past. She turned to face him, saw his confusion and concern. The one I've been running from. And now I've brought him to your door. Back at the penthouse, Ariana paced like a caged animal while Jang sat perfectly still, waiting. I need to leave, she said. Tonight. Disappear before he destroys everything you've built. No. You don't understand. Then explain. His voice was steel wrapped in silk. No more half-truths, Ariana. Tell me everything. She wanted to run. Every instinct screamed to protect him by leaving. But he deserved the truth, all of it. My last CIA operation was exposing Viktor Volkov's weapons network, she began, words coming harsh and fast. He's a Russian arms dealer, former SVR, now independent. Sells to anyone with money, cartels, terrorists, warlords. I spent 8 months infiltrating his operation, gathering evidence, building a case. What went wrong? My handler, Sean Reeves. Bitterness flooded her voice. I discovered he was Viktor's partner. Sean was stealing the intelligence I gathered, selling it to highest bidders, using CIA resources to facilitate Viktor's operations. They were making millions while I risked my life. Jang's expression darkened. You reported him. I tried. Ariana laughed bitterly. Sean found out. He framed me first, claimed I was the traitor, said I'd stolen $50 million in bearer bonds from one of Viktor's operations. Fabricated evidence, testimony, everything. Suddenly I was the wanted criminal, and he was the hero trying to catch me. The bonds? Sean took them. But Viktor thinks I have his money. She met Jang's eyes, saw him processing the magnitude. Sean wants me dead before I can expose him. Viktor wants me dead for the theft. I barely escaped Prague with my life. How long ago? 2 years. I've been running ever since. New cities, new names, staying invisible. Her voice cracked. Until I saved you. Until I let myself be seen. And now Alexei is dead, and Viktor knows exactly where to find me. Silence fell heavy between them. Ariana watched Jang's face, waiting for the moment he realized the danger she'd brought to his world. Waiting for him to choose survival over her. Instead, he stood and pulled her into his arms. You're not leaving, he said firmly. Wu Jin, you don't understand what Viktor is capable of. I understand you're terrified. I understand you've been alone with this for 2 years. I understand you think running protects me. He tilted her face up, forcing her to meet his eyes. But you're wrong. Running just means you face him alone. And I won't allow that. He'll destroy you. Everyone around me dies. I'm poison. Then we cure the poison together. His voice was absolute. You're not alone anymore, Ariana. Whatever Viktor Volkov brings, we face it together. Whatever it takes to clear your name, we do it. But you don't run. Not from this. Not from me. Tears burned her throat. I've gotten so many people killed. Not on my watch. He kissed her forehead, tender despite the steel in his voice. Viktor wants war? I've been fighting wars since I was 19. Sean Reeves wants you silent? We'll make sure the whole world hears your truth instead. This is insane. Probably. A slight smile. But we established weeks ago that catastrophic decisions are our specialty. Despite everything, the fear, the grief, the certainty that loving him would get him killed, Ariana found herself laughing. Desperate, broken, but real. He'll come for us, she whispered. Let him. Jang's arms tightened around her. He'll find out what happens when someone threatens what's mine. They stood at the windows, watching Los Angeles wake to another day. Somewhere out there, Viktor Volkov was planning his next move. Somewhere, Sean Reeves was monitoring for any sign of her surfacing. But for the first time in 2 years, Ariana wasn't running. I love you, she said quietly, the words both confession and surrender. I didn't want to. But I do. Jang turned her to face him, and his eyes held something fierce and tender both. I love you. Which is why we fight. Together. No more running. No more facing demons alone. This will get ugly. I'm counting on it. He kissed her, claiming and promising. Viktor Volkov has no idea what he started. He thinks he's hunting a ghost. He's about to discover he's cornered a survivor with everything to lose and nothing left to fear. And a very well-connected, extremely dangerous boyfriend, Ariana added. Partner, Jang corrected. We're partners. In everything. The sun rose over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and blood. Somewhere, her past was coming for her. But this time, she wouldn't face it alone. This time, she'd fight back. Viktor Volkov didn't make grand entrances. He made statements written in blood and fire. The nightclub went first, Club Azure in Koreatown, one of Jang's legitimate businesses. The explosion at 11 p.m. killed 8 people instantly, injured 23 more. Security footage showed a man in a maintenance uniform planting the device 3 hours earlier. By the time forensics arrived, he'd vanished into LA's sprawl like smoke. Ariana watched the news coverage from Jang's office, numb with horror. Bodies on stretchers. Paramedics working frantically. A young woman crying for her sister who didn't make it out. This is my fault, she whispered. Jang's hand found hers, gripped tight. This is Viktor's choice. Not yours. The next attack came 48 hours later, Jang's lieutenant, David Kim, kidnapped from his home. They found pieces of him delivered to 3 different Baekdu locations over the following week. Each package came with a note in Viktor's elegant handwriting, return what's mine. He thinks I have the bearer bonds, Ariana said, staring at the latest message. He won't stop until he gets them. Then we give him what he wants, Jang replied. Or make him think we are. Ariana knew what she had to do. The only way to end Viktor's rampage was to end Viktor. And the only way to do that was to become the bait. She started packing at 3 a.m., moving silently through Jang's penthouse, gathering the fake identifications she'd kept for emergencies. One last run. Draw Viktor away from Jang's world, face him alone, end this before more innocent people died. Going somewhere? She turned. Jang stood in the bedroom doorway, arms crossed, eyes blazing with an anger she'd never seen directed at her. I have to finish this, she said quietly. Before he kills everyone you care about. So your plan is what? Sacrifice yourself like some tragic heroine. He crossed to her, gripping her shoulders. Ariana, he'll torture you for information you don't have, then kill you anyway. How does that help anyone? It stops him from destroying your life. You're my life. The words exploded from him, raw and desperate. Don't you understand? I spent 10 years existing, not living. going through motions, playing a role, being what everyone needed while dying inside. Then you crashed into my world, and suddenly I remembered what it felt like to be alive. You don't get to take that away. You don't get to make yourself a martyr. Tears burned her eyes. Everyone I touch dies, Woojin. I can't watch him kill you too. Then don't watch. Fight beside me instead. He pulled her close, fierce, and protective. We're smarter than Victor. We have resources he doesn't expect. We can end this together. But you have to trust me. Trust us. They planned through the night, fueled by coffee and desperation and the cold clarity that came from having nothing left to lose. We give him a meeting, Jang said, studying satellite imagery of potential locations. The bonds, and exchange. The bonds we don't have, Ariana pointed out. We fake them. Bearer bonds are difficult to verify without proper equipment. We need him to believe long enough to get him in position. He traced a location on the map, abandoned warehouse in San Pedro, isolated, multiple entry points. You wear a wire. Every word he says, every confession about his operations, his partnership with Sean, all recorded. Sean won't come, Ariana said. He's too smart to expose himself. He will if he thinks you're about to give Victor information that implicates him. Jang's smile was cold. We leak word that you're negotiating, offering evidence of Sean's treason in exchange for your life. Sean can't let that happen. So we're fighting a two-front war. Victor and Sean, both wanting me dead. With the recording transmitted live to FBI, CIA oversight, every media outlet I can reach. His hand covered hers. We exposed them both. Clear your name. End this permanently. Ariana studied the plan, finding the flaws, the risks, the 100 ways it could go catastrophically wrong. We'll be outnumbered. Victor never travels with less than 15 men. I'll have 30 surrounding the warehouse. Plus you. His eyes held absolute faith. You're worth at least 10 on your own. Despite everything, she smiled. Flattery won't make this less suicidal. Not flattery. Fact. He pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. I won't let him take you, Ariana. Whatever happens in that warehouse, we walk out together. I promise. She wanted to believe him. Needed to believe him. Okay, she whispered. We do this together. 3 days later, Ariana stood in the cavernous warehouse as sunset painted the sky in shades of blood. The wire was taped beneath her shirt, transmitting to a dozen different receivers. Fake bearer bonds sat in a briefcase at her feet. Jang's men surrounded the building in the shadows, invisible, professional, waiting. Jang had wanted to be inside with her. She'd refused. If this went wrong, she needed him alive to finish what they'd started. I love you, she'd told him before entering. If this goes sideways, it won't. He'd kissed her, fierce and claiming. And when you come out, we're getting married. No arguments. I'm not wasting another day pretending I can live without you. Now she stood alone in the gathering darkness, and headlights cut through the gloom. 3 black SUVs, expensive and ominous. They parked in a semicircle, and men emerged, precisely 15, just as she'd predicted. Professional, armed, moving with military discipline. Then Viktor Volkov stepped out, and Ariana's blood ran cold. He looked nothing like a monster. 50-something, elegant in a charcoal suit, silver threading his dark hair. He could have been a diplomat, a professor, someone's distinguished uncle. Only his eyes betrayed the void beneath, flat, calculating, empty of anything resembling humanity. Ariana Cole, he said in accented English, voice cultured and pleasant. Though I doubt that's your real name. You've led me on quite the chase, Dorothea. I have your bonds. She kept her voice steady. 50 million, just like you think. I'll trade them for my life and a guarantee you stop targeting Jang Woojin's organization. Victor laughed, genuine amusement. You have courage, I'll grant you that. Unfortunately, you've also caused me considerable inconvenience. He gestured, and his men raised their weapons. I'm afraid the bonds aren't enough. I require something more. What? You're suffering. His smile was a serpent's. You see, I don't actually believe you have my money. I believe Sean Reeves has it. But you? You're the key to finding him. The one person who can testify to his treason. So here's my offer. Tell me everything you know about Sean, every operation, every contact, every piece of evidence. And I'll make your death quick instead of lasting days. That won't be necessary. The new voice came from the shadows, and Ariana's stomach dropped as Sean Reeves stepped into the light. He looked exactly as she remembered, mid-40s, unremarkable features, the kind of face that disappeared in crowds. Perfect for a CIA handler. Flanking him were 6 men in tactical gear, government-issue weapons, earpieces marking them as official assets. Sean. Victor greeted him like an old friend. Punctual as always. You promised me she'd be delivered quietly, Victor. Not this circus. Sean's eyes locked on Ariana, and she saw hatred there, cold, absolute. You should have stayed disappeared, Ariana. Should have accepted that some games you can't win. You framed me. Her voice shook with rage. You stole Victor's money, sold out your country, got good people killed, and you framed me to cover it all. I built an empire while you played idealistic spy. Sean moved closer, confident. You were always too naive, too righteous. You actually believed in the mission. It made you useful, but ultimately disposable. Everything you said is being recorded, Ariana said. Transmitted live to FBI, CIA oversight, media outlets. You're finished, Sean. His smile didn't waver. Am I? Who do you think controls those oversight channels? Who do you think has spent 2 years ensuring every agency believes you're the traitor? He pulled out a signal jammer. Nice try. But I've been blocking your transmission since you walked in here. Victor's laugh was appreciative. Always thorough, my friend. Now shall we discuss how we dispose of our mutual problem? Ariana's hand moved to the backup weapon hidden at her spine, but Victor's men were faster, guns trained, nowhere to run. Then the warehouse exploded with violence. Zhang's men burst through windows and doors simultaneously, 30 against 21, surprise on their side. Gunfire erupted, muzzle flashes strobing in the darkness. Ariana dropped, rolled, came up firing at Victor's nearest guard. Chaos. Pure, brutal chaos. She moved like water through the firefight, disarming, disabling, her CIA training and 2 years of survival instinct merging into lethal efficiency. Sean's men were good, but she was better. She'd been trained by the best and tempered by betrayal. Victor drew his own weapon, aiming for her center mass. Ariana twisted, the bullet grazed her ribs, burning, and she returned fire, hitting his shoulder. He went down, cursing in Russian. Then Sean was there, gun pressed to her temple. Always so predictable, Ariana. Always the hero. And you're always the coward. She drove her elbow back, connected with his solar plexus. He gasped, grip loosening, and she spun, wrist lock, disarm, reversal. Now she had the gun, pressed under his chin. How's it feel, Sean? Knowing you're finished? The recording was never jammed. She smiled through blood and adrenaline. You think Zhang Wujin doesn't have resources? We built redundancies. Your confession went out 5 minutes ago. Every word. Every admission. You're done. Horror crossed Sean's face as sirens wailed in the distance. Real law enforcement, not his corrupted assets. Victor struggled to his feet, bleeding and raged. He raised his weapon toward Ariana's back. Zhang appeared from nowhere, weapon rising. Don't. Victor fired anyway. Zhang's shot was faster, center mass, professional placement. Victor's gun clattered from nerveless fingers as he collapsed, blood spreading across expensive fabric. Federal agents flooded the warehouse, real ones this time, responding to the transmitted evidence. Sean was arrested, his protests ignored as they read his rights. Victor was loaded onto a stretcher, critical but alive, headed for a prison medical facility he'd never leave. Ariana sagged against Zhang, exhaustion and blood loss catching up. He caught her, holding her upright through sheer will. You're shot, he said, voice tight with fear. Grazed. I'm fine. She wasn't, but she was alive. They both were. The recording? Transmitted successfully. FBI has it, CIA oversight has it, Washington Post has it. His smile was fierce. Sean Reeves's career ends tonight. And Viktor Volkov spends whatever's left of his life in Supermax. Paramedics approached, but Ariana held Jang's face in her hands first, needing him to hear this. You saved my life, she whispered. You saved mine first. I'm just returning the favor. He kissed her, gentle despite the violence surrounding them. We're even now. Hardly. She smiled through exhaustion. Pretty sure I'm still ahead. Then I'll spend the rest of my life catching up. As paramedics tended her wound and federal agents processed the scene, Ariana let herself believe in something she'd thought lost forever. Justice. Freedom. A future beyond survival. And a man who'd chosen to fight for her when she'd forgotten how to fight for herself. The headlines dominated news cycles for 6 months. CIA handler convicted on 47 counts of treason, conspiracy, murder. Sean Reeves received life imprisonment without parole, 3 consecutive sentences, ensuring he'd die behind bars. The trial exposed a decade of corruption, stolen intelligence, and bodies left in his wake. Ariana testified for 2 days, every word recorded, her truth finally heard. Her own CIA record was partially cleared, classified as unauthorized, but justified operations. Not full exoneration, the agency protected itself too carefully for that. But the treason charges vanished, replaced with notation that she'd acted to expose systemic corruption at great personal risk. It's not perfect, she'd told Jang after the verdict. No, he'd agreed, holding her as she processed years of vindication. But it's justice. That's more than most people get. Viktor Volkov died in Supermax custody 18 months later, prison stabbing, orchestrated by parties unknown. His weapons network collapsed without leadership, fragmenting into smaller operations that were swiftly dismantled by international task forces. The Jade Serpent, witnessing Jang's strength during the warehouse confrontation, negotiated lasting truce. Respect earned through fire rather than fear. 8 years changed everything. Jang kept his promise, systematic transition of Baekdu operations toward legitimacy. Real estate development projects revitalized Koreatown neighborhoods. Import-export businesses operated with proper licensing and transparent accounting. Venture capital investments in Korean-American startups created jobs and opportunities. You still have gray areas, Ariana observed one night, reviewing quarterly reports. Protection services for businesses that can't rely on police response, Jang admitted. Community mediation that keeps problems from escalating. I won't apologize for protecting our people. I'm not asking you to. She kissed him. Just making sure violence is last resort, not first instinct. Always. His hand covered hers. You taught me there's more power in building than destroying. Ariana had built something too, Haven Security, private firm employing former intelligence operatives with nowhere else to go. CIA cast-offs, military veterans with PTSD, people who'd done dark things for their countries and been discarded when convenient. We give them purpose beyond survival, she explained to potential clients, corporations needing executive protection, nonprofits working in dangerous regions, people who needed security from professionals who understood real threats. And we give them family. Her team was 15 strong now, loyal and skilled, grateful for second chances. They'd married in a small ceremony 4 years ago, blend of Korean and Western traditions that honored both their histories. Jang's family attended reluctantly at first, skeptical of this American woman who'd changed their air. But Ariana won them over with fluent Korean, genuine respect for tradition, and fierce protection of the family name. You make him happy, Jang's aunt had said at the reception. I didn't think that was possible. Thank you. The wedding photos sat on Jang's office desk now, Ariana in hanbok and white dress both, Jang in traditional garb and tuxedo, their smiles genuine and hard-won. Michael Jang Cole was 5 years old, brilliant and curious, with his father's strategic mind and his mother's moral certainty. He knew his parents had complicated pasts, age-appropriate truth they'd never hide from him. Appa used to run the family business in ways that weren't always legal, Jang had explained. But he worked hard to make it better, to help people instead of hurting them. And Yama was a spy? Michael's eyes had widened. I worked in intelligence, Ariana corrected gently. And I learned that sometimes doing the right thing means standing up to powerful people, even when it's scary. Michael had considered this seriously. Was it scary? Terrifying, she'd admitted. But some things are worth being scared for. Now Michael played in the corner of the new Women's Self-Defense Center, Ariana's latest project in Koreatown, teaching practical skills and confidence to women who'd never been taught they could fight back. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew 200 people, community leaders, former clients, Haven security staff, Jang's business partners. Ariana stood at the podium, looking out at faces representing everything they'd built from ashes. This center teaches more than physical defense, she said. It teaches that you don't have to accept victimhood, that your past doesn't define your future. That trust is risky, but isolation is guaranteed emptiness. Applause, genuine and warm. As people toured the facility, training mats, equipment, classrooms, a young black woman approached Ariana, maybe 19, nervous but determined. Is it true you were a spy? Ariana knelt to her level, making eye contact. I worked in intelligence. Dangerous work, in dangerous places. And someone betrayed you? Yes. No point lying. Someone I trusted completely used that trust to destroy my life. The woman's face fell. Then how do you trust anyone again? Ariana took her hands, seeing herself 8 years ago broken, running, convinced isolation was safety. I learned that trust is scary because betrayal is real, she said quietly. But isolation is scarier. It's a guarantee of nothing, no connection, no love, no partnership. Trust is a risk, but it's a risk toward something. Isolation is certainty of emptiness. She squeezed the woman's hands. You have to choose the risk. Not blindly, protect yourself, listen to instincts, and set boundaries. But choose connection over safety. Choose building over hiding. The woman's eyes filled with tears. What if I choose wrong? Then you survive it and choose again, wiser. Ariana smiled. I chose wrong once. Nearly destroyed me. But I chose right the second time, and it saved my life. Don't let one betrayal steal your whole future. The woman nodded, empowered, and moved toward the training area with new determination. Ariana stood, turned, and found Jang across the room. He was talking to community leaders, Michael on his hip, looking every inch the legitimate businessman he'd worked so hard to become. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up, and their eyes met. A decade of partnership. Of choosing each other every day despite damage, despite fear, despite every reason to run. Not perfect, they still had nightmares sometimes, still carried scars that ached. But together. He smiled, and she smiled back, and in that moment Ariana understood what redemption really meant. Not erasing the past. Not pretending damage didn't exist. But choosing to build something beautiful despite the broken pieces. Choosing trust after betrayal. Choosing love after loss. Choosing to fight for a future instead of running from the past. Jang mouthed across the room, I love you. She mouthed back, I love you too. Michael waved enthusiastically, and she laughed, crossing to them, folding herself into her family, imperfect, complicated, hard one. Some people are worth fighting for. Some futures are worth building. The secret she'd learned was choosing both. And never, ever stopping the choice. That night, after the celebration ended and Michael was asleep, Ariana and Jang stood at their penthouse windows, watching Los Angeles sprawl beneath them in rivers of light. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Taking a chance on the waitress who saved your life? Every day, he said seriously. She looked at him, startled, and he smiled. I regret not finding you sooner. Not having more years with you. Not. She kissed him silently. We have now. We have Michael. We have everything we built together. We do. He pulled her close. Two ghosts who learned to be human again. Pretty sure we're still figuring that part out. Then we'll figure it out together. He kissed her temple. For the rest of our lives. Outside, the city hummed with ambient noise, sirens, traffic, the endless pulse of millions of lives intersecting. Inside, they stood in comfortable silence, two people who'd survived the unsurvivable and chosen each other anyway. Not a fairy tale. Something better. A story earned through blood and fire and the terrifying choice to trust again. And in the end, that was the only kind of happy ending worth having. You just spent 1 hour and 40 minutes of your life with me. With Ariana running from her past. With Jang trapped by his legacy. With two broken people learning to be whole together. I wrote every word hoping it would matter to someone. Hoping it would reach a person who needed to hear that betrayal doesn't mean you stop trusting forever. It means you get wiser about who you trust. If this story gave you anything, literally anything, a like costs you nothing, but tells the algorithm to show this to someone else who's running, hiding, convinced they're too damaged for love. A share means someone in your life who needs this message might actually see it. A comment, even just this hit, helps me understand what resonates so I can write more stories that matter. I'm not asking you to buy anything. Just don't ghost the story that kept you here for 1 hour and 40 minutes. Help it reach who it's meant for.